Good morning, my neighbors. How's everybody doing today? Welcome to Morning Motivation, your daily dose of inspiration and empowerment. I'm your host, Jamon, and I'm thrilled to have you join me this morning as we kickstart our day with positivity and purpose. So whether you're here to seek like-minded individuals, connection, or simply to get your day started on the right foot, you've come to the right place. It's Hump Day. And as you're entering the building, go ahead and hit that like button. Go and get that out the way. And if you're enjoying the show and you want to support your boy, buy me a cup of coffee. Because I promise you, it's all I drink these days. Oh, man. But yeah, it's Hump Day, man. And if you're passing through for the first time, welcome. Drop a hello in the chat. I promise we'll speak back because we are Southern in this space. And we have what you would call manners. So, we've been talking about resiliency. And we started this whole thing up talking about the movie Inside Out. And all of the challenges personally that I've had in the last year, the ups and the downs, emotions all over the place, and talking about the importance of understanding your emotions and being able to regulate them. Because at a point in life, you start getting a little too old to be crashing out. When you get to a certain age, you shouldn't be cussing people out. You shouldn't be acting a fool. The hair trigger needs to have a little bit more firmness to it at a certain point. And honestly, sometimes we don't always learn these things because when we're in our spring season, we have parents and people in our community overseeing us and making us keep them in check. But then we become adults and we learn that there's consequences to actions. And sometimes we learn that lesson quick, but most times it takes a few minutes. And we go in and we become crash dummies and we start sabotaging our lives and making bad decisions because we were too deep in our feelings. And so today we're going to continue down that line, talking about overcoming fear and embracing failure. And it's not the first time we've covered this topic in this show, but today's going to be a good one. So shout out to that chick, yo, Auntie Canada in the building. How y'all doing this morning? And today I think I'm going to just hop right into it. I'm going to shoot from the hip just a little bit because there's so many different places that I could go in this conversation. And so bear with me as I go into, because I wanted to start with a little bit of a story. And it's a familiar story, not just because it's mine, but because it's probably many of you listening. Now, I'm probably going to date myself in this story a little bit because I don't think you guys experienced it in the same way. I don't know. I think my generation, if you're a Gen Xer, you probably can relate to this. If you're not a Gen Xer, you may have just missed it unless you wanted a really old millennials. Millennials. So, growing up, my mother, my father, people in my community would always say to do your best. You know, be twice as good as other people. Do your best, and if you've done your best, then you can walk away knowing that you did all you could do. But your best compared to what? Because in my community, I would get up early on a Saturday morning with my mom and we go stand in this line outside this building. And we didn't do it too many times because my mother decided that this wasn't the route she wanted to go. But the line would be out of a kind of like a strip mall. And there would be this one door And it's like if you live in a major city, it's like going to the DMV. And you can see the line come out of the building, down all the way down the front of the building, and sometimes into the parking lot. Well, this line was what we would call the welfare line. And in the welfare line, it'd be people, generally mothers with their children, and they'd stand in line, and sometimes you were getting vouchers, but then sometimes you was getting the powdered milk, the big logs, blocks of cheese, and other non-perishable things. Sometimes some fruit, some veggies, just depending. And that is all I saw. That was a normal thing. And then I go back to my community, and the houses were run down, the community wasn't as clean, but people were together. We were a family. And so that became the level of competition in a way. Because to have success meant to me just be a step better. Just live in a little nicer house, a little nicer community. And to be quite honest, if you grew up in the projects or the PJs or around that area, it wasn't really hard to not be in that area. So you get this false sense of security and you think that I made it. But it's one thing when you cross out of a level and you go into a new level. Once you go into that new level, you begin to realize that you don't have the experience. You don't have the know-how to get to where you were, because you've always was taught to be your best. And your best in one season may not even qualify for the next season or the next level. And so that was my, you know what, I want to do something in real time here. Let me pull up my page. I want to do an example. I haven't used my little whiteboard feature in a while. So I want to, let's see, y'all bear with me 1 second. Because this is something that I do typically when I'm either doing classes or I'm kind of brainstorming myself. All right, I think I'm ready. Yes, all right. So a lot of times when we grow up in different environments, I would say we have norms. I see that, yep. We have norms and expectations. And the norms is, what we typically see from a day-to-day basis. The norms is the routine that you have in your house, the routines of your community, traffic patterns coming in and out of your community. Those are all normal things. And now we have expectations. Well, I expect to, as an adult now, I expect to make a certain amount of money. I expect to live a certain kind of lifestyle. I expect my children to behave a certain way. I expect my spouse to be a certain way. So there's all these expectations. And the thing about expectations is that you really can't control what happens around anybody else or with what anybody else is doing. You can only control what you can control. And that's the problem with expectations, although they're very good to have. But we put too much stock in our expectations sometimes. And so now what happens is we form this box. And in this box, we have this thing called comfort. In this box, we have this thing called comfort. And we all hear that, comparison is the thief of joy. And so once we get into our spot, we find our new normal, the expectations they're going to always grow because you're going to always see somebody else, something, some new job, some new thing that's going to make you want to stretch and grow a little bit more. You're going to want to start a business. You're going to want to lead or be in leadership. You're going to want to get a degree, an advanced degree, so you can earn more money. But with that degree comes more responsibility. With that new job comes new duties, new responsibilities. With this higher hit in income, there's a new degree of education you got to have to manage it. And so what most people do is they poke their head out of this box and they look around. And they start to set their own expectations and their own goals. And then something comes along and life happens. It chops it slaps your hand, or sometimes it just cuts the whole neck. And then what we do? We go right back into that comfort zone. We go right back into that same old way of living, being on purpose butthole. We go back into that little box of, this is where I'm most comfortable. This is where I've always been. This is where who my people are, where they've come from. This is who I am. Accept me for who I am. But you already know that you don't want to be this person anymore. You already know you have a higher expectation of yourself. But you can't reach certain goals living in a comfort zone. And then on the other side of that coin, you have people who step out and they don't grow up the way I grew up. They grew up a totally different way. They have trust funds, maybe not actual trust funds, but they grew up with a family that was high earning or high achieving. Education is expected. Being a high level professional is the expectation. For them, that's their norm. And then they have success. Financially, they don't want for anything. Friendships, they have connections and strong networks. But now their expectations has to change because what they were expected to be, they've became. And now that they've become that, it becomes their normal. And so both, no matter which side of the looking glass you find yourself, there's a thing that happens next in life once we find our new normal. Complacency kicks in. And then after complacency, we start seeing people who are doing slightly better products or TV shows or foods or travels or whatever. The next thing that piques your attention. Because we never get to a point in life when we're just satisfied. Now, I say that with a little caveat. Being satisfied with your life is one thing. But when you live in a culture that is constantly parading new things in front of you, new opportunities, the cost of living is increasingly going up. Where you was living at 5 years from now, the amount of money you made 5 years ago, the relationship that you had back in high school, in college, times have changed, so therefore everything in that time must change. And so satisfaction only lasts for a few minutes. Comfort only lasts for a few minutes. And so most people fall into a space where they become very fearful of the change. Some people start projecting way into the future and say, well, if we don't do this by now or by this time, this is going to happen and we're going to be screwed. And some people are stuck in the past. I talk about the book Who Moved My Cheese by, last name is Spencer. I'm going to find that book. I think I got it over there somewhere. And I told you about the book Who Moved My Cheese and how the mice went into the maze and they were expecting that the cheese would be in this certain place. Two of them were just determined that this cheese was gonna come back when it stopped coming. Two of the other mice, they went on into the maze and they found more cheese. They found better cheese because they were willing to adapt to the change and keep going. They didn't get stuck in that box. They kept going. And so what most people run into, what most people fear is the unknown or the fear of failure. Auntie Canada says, I have so many older residents that are stuck in the past. Yeah, the past, I think we call those regrets. So many people, not to you, I'm talking about from my perspective. From your perspective, yes. I know many people also who remember the good old days, who remember when things used to be a certain way and you could do this. I hear people all the time say, man, I grew up in a day where you had to lock your front door. You had to lock your car. Well, we don't live in those days anymore. Shoot, I messed around and left my car unlocked, and I came back the next see everything in my glove compartment and my armrest was in my seats and in my flow. Y'all know what that was, right? Yep, somebody came through and they helped relieve me of spare change or anything valuable that wouldn't get them a felony. We don't live in that day anymore. And so I can't just protest and leave my doors unlocked because of how it used to be. And then there's those people who wake up and they had dreams of being a famous singer. And then they wake up at 60 and their voice is pretty much shot. They don't have the power they used to have. They can still sing, but they don't have that it factor anymore. They don't have the look for it anymore. And there's nothing they can do about it. And so now it's regrets because they used to sing better than Beyonce. They sung just like Teddy Pendergrass. But fear held them in place. They got uncomfortable where they were, so they went back to a place that was familiar to them. They got into a new relationship, and then the person in the relationship had some higher standards, and they required more. And they said, oh no, my parents don't tell me what to do. You're not going to tell me what to do. And then they leave the relationship. And that's both ways. I know ladies who come into a relationship and they had a standard. And that guy, he struggled to meet it because it wasn't his normal. And so he leaves the relationship. I know ladies who didn't grow up with a father. And when they have a real dude, a strong dude come in and say, hey, boo, I like where you're going, but we're going to pump the brakes on that right now because we need to get this done first. So how about we put this we put this back, in the cupboard and let's execute on this first. Oh no, you ain't gonna tell me what to do. You ain't my daddy. And they leave the relationship. We've popularized a term that says new level, new devil, right? I've never been a fan of that, although it is very true. I've never been a fan of that because most times it's us that's the devil. Most times it's us getting in our own way. Most times our inability to regulate our own emotions in situations causes us to put up stumbling blocks in our own way. And so I believe that we have more control over life than we believe. And so real quick, I want to share a video with you that I think breaks down, and I'm probably going to stop it periodically just because it makes some really good points as far as what happens when we get out of our comfort zone and we start to experience certain levels of fear.
The reason why we remember specific moments or movies is because they have been stored in our memory under the influence of emotions.
I need to make sure. Can y'all hear that? Give me a 1 if you can hear and see. Give me a 1 if you can hear and see me well. And I'm going to restart this just because the first Pay close attention to this first statement that is made.
The reason why we remember specific moments or movies is because they have been stored in our memory under the influence of emotions. When we win or fail, cry or celebrate, we learn fast, deep, and plenty. But when we are afraid, our brain limits our ability to think, for a good reason. Fear is an emotion induced when we face a threat to our physical or psychological well-being. It causes a change in brain and organ functions and ultimately in our behavior. First, we get stressed or aggressive, then we are left with 3 final ways out: freeze, fight, or flight.
All right, I want to pause it right there. This is nothing new. We've talked about this before. We talked about fight, flight, or freeze. We talked about the responses that the physiological impacts that fear and anxiety has. And I bundle anxiety in there because anxiety comes right around the same time fear shows up. So they're kind of like siblings. And so fear, in a sense, it can paralyze us if we're not understanding what the emotion of fear is. It creates that mental block that prevents us from taking action. So that's when the flight, fight, or freeze comes in. But it also messes with our digestion. It increases our cortisol levels in our bodies. And so now we're gaining weight. For those of you who are like me, you start to emotionally eat your feelings. Basically, a cookie isn't safe. A bag of chips. Oh man, a bag of chips will rule your whole mood. And this is all based upon our emotions and our resiliency or lack thereof, especially early on in our life. And so one of the physical impacts is that we notice it through like muscle tension. Like for me, I get this tightness in the back of my neck when I'm getting really stressed, or I feel like the anxiety might be kicking in. It's like right there I start to feel that tightness. Then it turns into a headache, and then I have trouble sleeping sometimes. I'm in and out all the time. You know, I might doze off for 2 hours and I wake up and it's like, oh man, I didn't sleep good last night. Now I got to go through this whole day feeling the way I'm feeling. Feeling the way that I'm feeling. And so, anyway, let me get back to it. We'll talk about that a little bit.
The reason for this is evolution. Over the last million years, we learned that when we meet a dangerous animal, we'd better freeze, fight, or run and hide. To save our life, this is now programmed in our genes. But something else happens. When it gets dangerous, a specific region of our brain, the amygdala, takes over.
Amygdala.
Its job is to protect us and save our life. To act fast, it refrains us from thinking and leaves us with only those 3 options. This makes creative and critical.
The amygdala, when you get in that space, it stops your thinking. And now you go off of instinct. Fight, flight, or freeze. Is this ringing true for anybody? Or is it just my story? Is it just what I've go through? You know what I'm saying? Is it just me? Or is this ringing true for other people? Why did you do that? Why did you react that way? Man, I wasn't even thinking. So when somebody tell you they wasn't even thinking, they probably were not. Their body took over. The amygdala said, nope, we shutting this down. What are we doing? Are we finna run away? Are we gonna fight this thing? Or are we gonna stand still? Because I need to save you. The brain's job is to keep you safe. Okay, Auntie Canada said, I believe it's true. The brain's job is to keep us safe. You know, I used to wonder why I forget a lot of things. And I was really concerned a few years ago. So I went to the doctor because I was thinking, man, maybe I got early onset dementia or some Alzheimer developing. And they went in and they looked and they said, man, ain't nothing wrong with you. Your brain is healthy. You're good. So maybe you just have too much going on that the non-important things get shifted to the back of your mind. And I said, okay, well, I took it at face value for what it was. I saw the results. I saw the little brain scans. I didn't have any dark areas or anything. So I'm like, all right, well, that's a relief. But the more I've stayed in this space, I've realized the things that impact us the most are the things that come through emotion. The things that I remember the most are the things that emotionally made me feel something. It had a big emotional impact on me. Some of our traumas, we'll never forget some of our traumas. We'll never forget how certain people made us feel, even if the relationship ended bad or we haven't seen them in years. We remember how being around that person makes us feel. In a relationship, ladies, if you make a guy feel like, and it's different based on so I'm gonna do a generalization right now. If when a guy comes around you and it feels easy, it feels at peace, he feels important, he feels like he a man when he around you. Guess where he gonna want to be more often? Around you. Now I get this is the beginning stages, and a lot of other hormones are in the air, but he's gonna tend to want to be around you more. Ladies, I'm not a lady, so I don't know what that feeling is like, but what I've heard is that a lady could be in a relationship for 5+ years and her husband could be the greatest guy ever. But that was this one guy. Oh, he made her feel a way that she ain't felt since. She's never going to forget him. You see, when we tie emotions to emotions to, or feelings to an act, a time period, which is why the older generation will say, man, back in my day, man, because there was an emotional connection there. It's stronger. We remember it. But just everyday stuff that's just normal, you don't remember the normal stuff. You remember the extraordinary things that made you feel away. So it's important to understand that emotions are super important. And when you understand that they are important, you learn how to use them. You learn how they stop you. They set you back. And this is the level. This is the part of the maturity process.
Thought process is impossible. High pressure triggers a similar response. In one experiment, German neuroscientist Professor Dr. Hutter measured the brain function of young men playing a car racing game. The race was on and the men eager to win. When the researchers later looked at the scans of the brain, they saw shockingly little activity. In fact, the young men hardly used their brains at all, and they certainly didn't remember much. Later, the researchers repeated the experiment. This time, they did not play the game themselves, but just watched from inside the car sitting next to the driver. Instead of focusing to win, they focused on a lot of other things: driving behavior, the racetrack, other cars. This time, the brain showed lots of activity. Learning happened and memories were created.
This example reminds me, I can be a very aggressive driver sometimes. And what has become normal to me, I can tailgate somebody doing 90 and it doesn't faze me one bit. Doesn't faze me one bit. But my passenger, Whether my wife or my children, whoever's in that passenger seat, oh, they are grabbing that bar right here. My wife, she got to the point now where she just puts her head down and just takes a nap. Oh man, she put her head down and take a nap. Because for me, driving, it really is an emotional act. It's like I can feel everything around me. And my mission, my focus is getting to a place. And so I tune out everything, any danger. I tune out everything because I am on the mission. I am emotionally attached to getting to this place on time, to whatever. Oh, damn, Craig said, amen. He ain't lying. Oh, but when I'm in the passenger seat, shout out to Craig. When I'm in the passenger seat, all of a sudden, I see everything. I see everything. My wife cut across 3 lanes of traffic and exited one time in a curve. And she looked at me like, what? I'm like, now had I done that, you'd be ready to jump out the car right now. But that's how it goes. Whatever we're focused on, that's what we're doing. So there's so many different ways to take that one statement. But I'm gonna keep it pushing on that one.
The scientists concluded that when we panic at a maths exam or when a salesman fears he might miss his monthly target, it can create a tunnel vision. Then our vision field becomes smaller, our learning limited, and we cannot find the road to success. Next time, when you are stressed to perform or when you panic during an exam, try this quick fix. First, slowly breathe in through your nose. To do it slow enough, count from 1 to 5. Then breathe out through your mouth, again counting to 5. Repeat that for 1 to 5 minutes and your body will relax and your brain can switch from protection mode back to a learning mode.
So that was basically a wrap up that they're giving you in that video. Just one little thing you can do to help. When we are emotionally charged, fear often follows. Fear often follows when it's a stress emotion, when it's shame, when it's sadness or anxiety. Fear is right there. It's right behind you. And as I said 1,000 times before, our body's job, primarily our amygdalas, but our brain's job is to keep us safe. And so when people are in an emotional state, it is hard to come to them with logic. And so I am on this with my guys a lot. Because a man will come along and we want to logic the problem away when it's not a problem that needs to be solved. It's an emotional problem. It's a feeling. And it's some regulation that needs to happen. And so what I'm learning, shout out, this one's free, ladies. Just give me a second on it. What I've had to learn is that when my wife's shoulders are up in the air and she's tight and she's tensed, I don't need to give her the philosophical reasons. I don't need to give her a morning motivation speech or talk about why stress is bad. I feel like I'm hearing some amens right now. I don't know. Maybe it's just in my mind, but I heard, amen, brother. I heard what I heard in my head. What's needed in that moment isn't a dissertation on the dangers of stress. When you are dealing with the emotion and then fear kicks in, yes, it seems irrational because it is. There is no thinking that's happening there. And any thinking that you try to do, it's always gonna be tough because your brain is not cooperating. You're trying to force your brain to do something that it's not going to do. Which is why taking that step away and breathing, bringing that stress level down, bringing your blood pressure down, taking a walk, exercising. It'll help you to be able to have more coherent thoughts and a better thinking pattern. And so what I've learned is that when my wife gets to that space, and I'm still struggling with it because physical touch isn't my love language. It's not my go-to. But I'm learning that when my wife is at that point of she's being held mentally hostage by herself. She don't need me to come talk at her. She needs me to hug her. And not just we all right. It's one of those, It's that hug, and that's the massaging of the back as I'm hugging. It's like a 20, 30-second hug. And I struggle with that because I don't always recognize that she's in an emotional place. So we work on, hey, boo, if you in that space, I don't know it. I'll ask you what's okay. I'll ask you, was you good? What's wrong? And you say, no, I'm okay. Well, I'm gonna take you at your word, because I'm not a mind reader. I don't even pretend to try. But if you tell me something's going on, we can address it. But if you tell me it's good, I'm gonna think it's good. And so early on, she would say it's good. I'm like, all right, cool. I'm gonna go to the other room. I'm gonna go do something. But now, every time I come in the door, we hug. And it's, like I said, it's 20 seconds, 30 seconds. It's not a quick hitter and we done. It's 20, 30 seconds. When she needs a hug, she's gotten better at saying, babe, do you need a hug? I'm like, I don't need, oh, yeah, I need a hug, babe. I need a hug. Come give me a hug. But it's communication, especially in relationships that matter so much. You can't take your logic brain and then take that logic to an emotional conversation. Doesn't work because they're not thinking. They're in fight, flight, or freeze. Ladies, same go for you, same thing. When a man is emotional and he's not going to present the same way as your emotions would present. But when he starts talking crazy and you're not understanding what he's saying, he's emotional right now. But he can't, it's hard for men to show that emotion in the same way because we don't think the same way, first off. But also, we don't want to be labeled as soft or looked at as less because we exhibited some emotion. Because one time we exhibited, oh, he cried, oh, he showed his emotions. But about the 15th time, it's like, bruh. You more emotional than me. So men, we tend to hold that stuff in a little bit more. So here's the cheat code, ladies. When your dude is just cranky for no reason, he's probably in an emotional state. If he antsy, he can't sit still. He just got to keep doing something, and he's already done it, but he's doing it over again. He's probably in an emotional state. Go hug him. Go love on him. Go help him release some tension, and you know what I'm talking about. Help him release some tension. Yep. I think it was Job that said, the thing I feared most has come upon me. Job was probably the wealthiest man in the country, if not the world at that point in time. Had plenty of children, had plenty of lands, plenty of money, resources. He had plenty of servants. And then he lost it all in a very short period of time. And so you better believe he was emotional. But at some point he came to himself. At some point he came to himself. Yeah, his wife got into an emotional place. Why don't you just curse God and die? He's like, wait a minute. This is not what we're doing. The Lord giveth, the Lord taketh away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Even though he slay me, I still worship him, right? I still serve him. There are some principles that go along with all of this, and we talked about it months on end. Gratitudes and affirmations. Gratitudes and affirmations. There are people who are living an amazing life. They're living the best life they've ever lived, but they're not happy with it because they're not living the life that they want, the new life. They in their mind, they see a new level. They see a new thing they want to get to. So now they can no longer be happy with where they are. They can't appreciate where they are. The emotions are up. And so overcoming it is the challenge. In order to overcome it, we have to reframe it. Oh, I ain't putting none of my little titles up. I'm gonna start with this one though. In order to reframe failure, is we have to understand what failure is. And we've talked about it 1,000 times. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. Reframing that picture in your mind. Reframing telling yourself a different story is basically what needs to happen. Because we are all telling ourselves a story. I've always been this way. Even though everybody you know tell you, you got to stop that. Everybody telling you got to stop that. But nobody can change it but you. And so now the fear, if I change this, who am I then? You're a better version of yourself. That's what you are. But fear creeps in and now they can't think. So for a few minutes, we're going to talk about really reframing that failure. Everybody always use this example. Can somebody put in the chat, how many failures did Thomas Edison have? I think it was Thomas Edison. Yeah. How many failures did Thomas Edison have when trying to invent the light bulb? This is like, if you go to any kind of empowering or motivational seminar, workshop, whatever, you're probably going to hear this story. Well, used to. I'm not sure if it's still that popular now, but I'm sure somebody here know. How many times, how many failures did he have before having a successful light bulb? How many times did he fail? Anybody know? Well, maybe it's not as common as I thought it was. Okay. Go learn a little historical fact today then. Well, it's kind of a fact. I ain't going to go there today, though. 10,000 times he failed. 10,000 picking up the notepad right now. Okay, I'm trying it this way today. Let's connect it. Let's 2,774. Slightly off, but good response. I appreciate it. 10,000 times he failed. And that was taken, okay. And you know, he probably didn't write down the first way he did it. He just put it together, was like, did it work? No, let's try it this way. You know, like, oh, you know what? Let me start writing this down. So it probably was more than 10,000. But documented 10,000 ways he tried to construct this bulb and this filament to hold electricity and produce light. And then somebody asked him some years after that, was like, so failing 10,000 times didn't discourage you? It didn't deter you? He said, nah. I just found out 10,000 ways that it don't work. But it only need to work once, right? That's reframing failure. failure is the measuring stick for what works versus what doesn't work. And it's really it's not a fail if you learn. You really won. That's reframing the narrative, reframing the story. Failure is not an end all be all. Failure isn't final unless you stop. Failure is necessary for success. And we say it over and over and over again. You cannot have success if you don't fail first. And if you have success, oxymoron, right? But if you have success and you've never failed, failure is coming and it's going to hurt. It's much easier. It's much easier. And this is what Jordan is learning right now. He's like, Pop, he said, I just got the car. I just started working. I was just starting to save money. He said, now I'm broke again and I can't even drive my car. I'm broke again because I'm trying to fix the car, but I can't even drive the car. I worked too hard to be back here. Now, this is an 18-year-old. This is one of the greatest lessons in life that he's ever going to learn. And I said, son, what's worse than being broke? He said, nothing. I said, oh, no, sir. Because somebody tell me, what's worse than being broke? Does anybody know what's worse than being broke? I know we're on a little bit of a delay, so I'm going to go ahead and answer it because we got a little time left. It is having success, having money, having a comfortable lifestyle, having money saved in the bank, having to not worry about money just because you want to go buy a smoothie. It's being in that space and then having to go back to being broke. That's what's worse than being broke. And he was like, Pops, that is so true. Oh my God, that's true. He was like, because I wouldn't have cared about none of this stuff. I said, exactly. But now you got a taste of what freedom is. You got a taste of what having stability is and having a little bit of little money in your pocket. You got a taste of it. Now you got to go back to not having anything. It's like a tease. It's a tease, but guess what? That's where the lessons are. That's where the lessons are. The lesson is in the failure. Failure is the ingredient for success. That was fire. But I say that again, Jamal. Failure is the main ingredient, or the main, it's like a main ingredient to success. It is very hard to have success, but especially maintain and sustain success without failure. And people get so caught up trying to be perfect, trying not to have failures, trying to have everything to be perfect before they start because they don't want to fail. They don't want people to talk about them or to ridicule them because it's not perfect. You can't wait on perfect. Can't stop, can't stay there because there's no such thing as perfection. No such thing as perfection. So overcoming fear and embracing failure is necessary. It's necessary to live the life that you want to live. Failure is the teacher to success. Facts. Facts. You can't really have one without the other. They go hand in hand. So if you spend your whole life trying to avoid failure, you're also running from success. And sadly, that's the crux of it. That's the crux of it. Control what you can control. You can control how educated you are. You can control how you regulate your emotions by understanding your emotions, understanding your triggers. And that's just paying attention. If you find yourself breathing heavy and your face frowned up, okay, why am I doing this? What just happened? Just paying attention to what's happening. Oh, this person walked in a room and it just triggered me. Dang. So I don't like this person. Why don't I like this person? Self-examination, self-assessing. These things will help you understand your emotions better. When you just got smart with your partner for no reason, they said, "Hey, good morning. How you doing today? How you think I'm doing?" Oh, okay. I'm going to work. I'll see you when you get home. Whew. Ooh, well, I don't know what that was about. Dang, I shouldn't have done that. Why did I do that? What was I feeling? Being able to self-assess. And most people have an inability to do that. And it's not because they don't want to. It's because they don't think to do it. Because they're in fight, flight, or freeze mode. So they don't take your time to assess. But the more you start being conscious of it, the more you start doing it, the stronger you will be at it. The easier it'll become. And it happens over time. But by the time you're 40, 45, you've already burned so many bridges. You've crashed out so many times that people won't forget how you acted, how you treated them, how you made them feel. Because you just etched into their brains, this person is dangerous. This person is toxic. I don't want no parts of that person, even though you've changed. And that's some things that we really have to kind of live with. So I'm gonna give you a few steps to reframe this story and to get over or to overcome this fear. How to overcome this fear. The first one is something that we talked about, being mindfulness, doing mindfulness exercise. Fear of failure often comes from focusing on the outcomes that may never happen. Focuses on the outcomes that aren't proven yet. Oh man, I would go shoot my shot, but she probably got a man. Oh man, I would go shoot my shot, but she looked mean. Oh man, you know what I'm saying? You see, fellas, that makes sense. Ladies, what'll be a good one for the ladies? Oh, this guy speaks to me every day. I would smile and speak. I would smile and speak back, but that might make him think I want him, and then he gonna pester me. Or I would compliment her on her dress, but she might get the big head. I don't know. Ladies, I'm not a lady, so forgive me if that was way off, but I kind of feel like it was kind of on because I do listen a lot. Being mindful, journaling, your feelings in that moment, breathing, focusing on where you are, what you're doing in this moment, what you're feeling, being mindful of your body. And number two is actually journaling. I went a little ahead of myself. Writing down your feelings, what you're thinking, writing down about your day. Today was a great day. I did this, I did that. This person spoke to me and it made me feel great. Oh man, these people kept wanting to hug me today. I mean, whatever happens in your day, journaling, writing it down, understanding that you're gonna have a bunch of successes and you're gonna have a bunch of failures. But once you can see them written out, you realize that they're not really failures. They're not really failures. But because you can see that, okay, yeah, I probably shouldn't have done it this way, but tomorrow I'm gonna do it that way and let's see what happens. That's the experiment. Rites of passage. We got about 3 minutes. Rites of passages. I'll close on this one. Historically, in the villages of no matter where you're from, in order to be considered a man or even a woman in a lot of cases, there's a rite of passage. You have to be able to defend or protect or fight. And so they would send these young men out at 13, 14 years old, they were especially ones that were trained to be a soldier. They wanted to be soldiers. They would send them out into the wild. If you've seen the movie 300, one of the opening scenes is like this. And he goes out and he has to slay this beast, this wolf-like creature. There's nobody out there with him. He's out there by himself. Him and I think it's a little knife. And you got to go out there and slay a wolf with a knife. Rite of passage. If you succeed, we call you a man, and we'll put you in this space. You'll be esteemed, and you'll have all this training. They do that, and it's the same reason that I made my sons wrestle. I didn't make them play football, but I made them wrestle. I think every dude should have to learn to wrestle, box, play football, or be in the military. Why? Because you have so many small victories. You have to overcome so many small fears that it creates a sense of confidence in you. You walk different, you talk different. So the rest of this week and into the weekend, I want to challenge you. I want to challenge you to find, what's the best way to say this? Do something that makes you feel a little uncomfortable. I need you to tackle some small fears. I need you to intentionally do something that makes you uncomfortable, that you've been putting off, to start rewriting your narrative, to reframing the fear. It could be speaking up in a meeting. It could be a new hobby, going a little bit further on whatever thing you already doing, but you always pull up a little short. I need you to confront those fears. And the more you confront the fears, the more power you will have, the more confidence you will begin to develop. And I want you to do those things because it's therapeutic, 1. 2, it'll help you grow in places and in ways that you didn't even think was possible. So overcoming fear and embracing failure. Overcoming fear, rewriting your narrative. When you're in an emotional state, you stop thinking. The amygdala kicks in and limits your ability to have coherent thoughts. And now your body takes over and you go into fight, flight, or freeze mode. Understanding your emotions helps you build resiliency, helps you not go into fight, flight, or freeze quite as fast. Understanding what triggers you, understanding what makes you happy are all keys to rebounding after you've had a major setback. And there are no shortage of setbacks. There are no shortage of failures. As long as you live, there will be some challenge coming your way. But if you can learn to master the emotions, understand the triggers, and learn how to reframe failure to embrace that failure, you will become unstoppable. There's nothing you won't be able to do to accomplish. You attract great partnerships. You will attract every resource you need because you become an anomaly. Because most people don't do this work. Most people just accept what has happened and they make their peace with it. You don't have to do that. As a part of this family, you should not do that. So thank you everybody for joining me this morning. Thank you for the likes, the comments, the shares. Please share this video with somebody who could use a little morning motivation. If you bought some coffee today, I really appreciate it. I thank you. I am grateful. I am humbled by your gift. But I really want you to go out there and I want you to test yourself. I want you to push yourself just a little bit further, because the greatest success, the greatest thing you could do for me is become successful. That's how you give back in the biggest way. I want your success. I'm getting mine. I am doing everything that I am telling you to do, and it's working for me. And I want you to experience the same success. So, you guys have a great weekend. Go out there, challenge yourself. Also, love yourself. Surround yourself with family and friends and hope and faith. Be the person that you want to be. Don't just settle for who you've always been. All right, guys. Be blessed. Have a great weekend. And we'll see you next week. Peace.